What up, guys? It's Mathew, the designer. I don't remember telling you that I'm writing a book. Here is the book, the title, Unqualified Graphic Designer. As you all know by now, that I didn't go to school for graphic design, it's just a passion. Academically, I have a background in IT software development. There is a quote that I like at the back of this book, which I would like to read for you. It reads as follows: to realize 10 years later that I have designed all but not my career. And this is the question that I want to ask you today. Have you thought about designing your own career? Because I've been thinking of graphic design as pixel perfect, a PC, a desk, CorelDRAW, or Illustrator. And that was it. And then I woke up the other day, I was like, have I tried to design my own career? So hence I started writing this book. Now in writing this book, I'm caught up between two ideas. The first one is to write the story of my life, which I believe it's boring, even if it's gonna be corporate or it's gonna be industry related, which is graphic design. But I believe it's boring. You have an interesting story than mine. You've got a better story to tell than mine. And the option number two is to invite you to a journey to my thought process, to my inner world, to how I see the world, to how I process the information, which is today. I'm just gonna try a little to introduce you to that journey, to my thought process and how I see the world. With graphic design, I don't want to just deal with things that you already know and things that are already there, but I want to question the things that are already existing. For instance, if we talk about the layout, what is a layout and where does it come from? Like what's the origin of a layout? So here I've got my law of layout, Matthew's law of layout. I'm just gonna read it quickly to you, and then we're gonna go to my whiteboard, and then we're gonna do some drawings there. I will explain what do I mean by this. If you don't understand, it now, bear with me. You're gonna understand it. Matthew's law of layout. All design elements are either pushed or pulled towards a center of a cell or a block in a mental grid system. Any visual object is perfectly aligned horizontally and vertically with two perpendicular bisecting lines. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here with this law is still a law at the moment. Maybe it's gonna be a principle, it's gonna be a rule, or it's gonna be a theory when I'm done with the book. There is something in graphic design which is called a layout, and it has got some principle. I wanted to understand where this layout comes from. How did it got about to be there? Maybe someone observed it, but how did it, where it comes from? Where is it originating? So now I'm just gonna take you through a quick, a brief introduction as to my thought process about the layout and where it comes from. Okay, let's go to the drawing board. This is the image that you see. Obviously, also your eyes are looking at it. I'm just gonna propose how I think your mind quickly captures the image. First of all, when your mind looks at something, this is the technique that it uses to some sort of translate the visual elements that it sees in the world around it. It captures the image and then it recreates the image. So what we're gonna do now, we're just gonna look at the image, and then from then we're gonna go down and we're gonna recreate the image, and then I'm gonna be explaining all my theories on how your mind processes this information. First of all, when your mind is about to recreate something that it has seen, it uses a grid system. I think as a designer you are familiar with this term, the grid. columns and rows. It uses this grid. So the origin of a grid system in layout design, it's a mental tool or a mental model that your mind uses to quickly capture an image and recreates it. So it doesn't capture and store it, it recreates it. So from what we have seen, this is how your mind will recreate the image that we saw. First of all, it will ask itself, where is the center? In anything that is going to do, it needs to identify the center. So this will be the center of your mind. So this is the center of your layout, or the page from which your mind will recreate the object. And then from then it will say, I saw something which is a sorry, because my light is too far from the center. This is how it will create it. I saw a light from the center of the room, and then somehow there was an object somewhere here, which was the window. Looking at the center, there was also another object which was far left, which was the door. It was far left, and then from then it will construct the whole house. Please bear with me, I will explain what's going on here in a minute. Then it will construct the whole house, and then from then it will ask how far was this object relative to the objects outside it. It will say there was something like a vehicle which was here. It was not that far. Also, there was an object that was here, which was very, very close. And then from then, your mind has recreated a picture that it has seen from here. So, what am I proposing? I'm trying to say, when your mind looks at something, it will always try to find the center. Remember, it has to capture this information, so it uses a grid system. Automatically, it finds the center. Let's say your mind has identified this part as the center. Everything will originate from this center. The way in which it's going to store this information so that you can recall it when even you're explaining to someone how the scene happened, and the car and the pedestrian and the bicycle. It must have a center as a reference. It's important. And then from then it will try to look for balance. If it doesn't find it, it knows that there was no balance. For instance, this was the center that was identified. It noticed that there was a window which was not far from the center, but there was a door which was too far left. It captures that. And then from then it knows that there is a frame, which is it must identify a subject in the scene. And then the subject in the scene was a house. Then how far the house was relative to the object outside it. Still, here is that center. This is too far from the center. This is very close to the center. If we take this object as the center, still this is too far, this is too close. So it uses a grid system. I think that's where the grid system originated in graphic design. So let's just go to the grid system. Your mind automatically has got these lines automatically, which will form as a basis of a layout. So in your mind, automatically this is a layout, and it has to some sort of take all these objects and fits them in this grid. So your mind needs to find the center. Then it will say, let's say this is my center. This is my center. So, okay. So your mind will identify this as a center, and then it will place an object here, which was your light, in a center of a grid. And then from then it will then try to understand the objects that were in here. Let's say for simplicity, it will draw the house here because it needs to have an object, some sort of an area of focus where it focuses on. Then it will try to ask itself how far it will look for the balance. Do you see where the graphic design, the layout principle are coming from? The mind always is looking for a balance. If it doesn't find it, it knows that things were not balanced. So it will find a small window here which didn't have a corresponding balance. This object was not in the same sort of distance from the center, which is your door was somewhere here. And then from then it will take this as a subject, as a center. It will ask the object that was here, how far was it? It will then say the car was too far from this center, and there was someone who is very close to this center. Let me change my markers. What does this mean? This is what this means. If now as a graphic designer you are told of a layout, something like this, someone is saying that, with as a designer, in order to become a good designer, you must know the principles. You must have a good layout. What is a good layout? In a good layout, you need to have balance. You see, this needs to balance, and then this needs to balance. Then this is a good design. But if things don't balance, let's just create another layout here. If things don't balance, it's not easy for the mind to capture this information because it has not been arranged in such a way that it makes use of a grid system. But here, the mind can quickly redraw this. Something like this. We have a box, we have a circle, we have another box, we have two boxes here, and then we have the other one. But this one, difficult for the mind to reconstruct. So where do these layout principles come from? This is my proposal. There is a mental grid system, a tool that is used by your mind to quickly, as fast as possible, to capture all the visual information and quickly stores it. And then after that, if all the information has been captured, then it uses something that I call it a VGA, a visual graphic analysis. It quickly does a report, which is how does the report looks like? This is what it says. Number one, where is my center? It will identify it. Secondly, where is my subject, which is the house? It will identify it. Then inside the house, the positioning of my elements. If this is my center, there was a window here which was in this distance, and there was a door which was too far from the distance. This is my center. How far were the object outside this center were from this center, which is there was a car which was too far, and there was someone who was closer. This is some sort of a quick visual graphic analysis. Well, this might not make sense now, hence I'm not done with the book yet, but I want you to invite you to this complexity of how I think is the origin of the graphic design principle. The layout principle, I assume, this is my proposal, it originated from the mind. It's a mental tool that our mind uses to quickly store information. As soon as you tamper with this layout with that grid system and come up with something like this is chaos to the mind. It's not easy to understand.